usually take a long time to happen. Now it takes very short time. If you think about the radio, I think it takes about 40 years for the radio to become mass-produced in the world. And they talk about television, it's about 20 years. World Wide Web is only about 5 years. So I think as time moves on, we see a compression of time and space. Personal computers, the prevalence is obvious. Internet technology and e-commerce. And I think there's an overlapping border of basic and applied research and diffuse boundary between manufacturing and service. I think if economists talk about manufacturing sector and service sector, I think this basically, they really need to do something very, a lot of different thinking, because telecommunication, for example, it is really manufacturing or it is really service. So I think there's a lot of diffuse boundary there. And with this technology, we can see the role of middlemen is being compressed. So the middlemen, that's talking about all financial services, brokers, distributors, and so on. They have to think differently. The disappearing borders and other things, globalization, and also SME. In the 20 years ago, it is the big companies like General Motors or Ford or Boeing or Sumitomo that can become globalized. But now it's the SMEs, the small, medium enterprise, that can readily become globalized. They move fast, and through this technology, they can become globalized institutions. Green products and green production, I think that's the environment talk about. AIs, smart world. In the future, well, 20 years ago, I think the design rules for computer is 30 years ago, it's about one computer for 300 people. And now when we bring in the PC and the Microsoft, then we are talking about one computer for one person. In the future, in the 20 years from now, I think we'll be talking about 200 computers or 200 microprocessors for each person. So we're talking about smart world, smart office, smart car, and smart everything. And because of that, there's a need to talk about lifetime learning, because you can never learn enough in the university or in the school. So the learning process is a lifetime. And also it brings about competition and cooperation. And I think this is where city and regional economy will gain dominance, because a country usually is a very big country, but a city or a region where you provide cohesive and provide stability, and it's easier to develop a focused vision within the city or within the region. And also within that region also have some enough diversity and synergy and competition there you can be built in. So you can really try to nurture regional advantage because of that. And of course, because of a city or a region, it is easier for effective governance to be taking place. Now, I don't have a global view like Neil Pierce has shown you, but this is in general looking at the Asia-Pacific region. I'm just focusing on the two sides of the Pacific Ocean. You have San Diego, Los Angeles, Silicon Valley, to Seattle, Vancouver, and then you come down from the other side, you have Tokyo, Beijing, Shanghai, Hsinchu, Guangzhou, and Hong Kong, which is another new area that I think we can talk about. And then all the way down to Brisbane and Sydney. I think these are the new center of the world. This map shows you a new area that's called Pearl River Delta, and where Hong Kong is a integral part of this. We have Hong Kong and Guangzhou on the both ends. The circle is characterized by the population, basically. And then you have Shenzhen in this area, and Dongguan, Zhongshan, Zhuhai, Macau, and Jiangmen. We have the mayor of Jiangmen here. So I think this is what we call the Pearl River Delta. In this area, I want to talk about some examples in this area. This area has about 10,000 square kilometers, has a population of about 20 million, and some people say it's about 25 million. It's hard to, with the newer census conducted in China, I think 25 million might be true. And to compare to the Tokyo, the metropolitan Tokyo area, the greater metropolitan New York area, Los Angeles area, so you can see this is one of the very important region that we can talk about. And this brings me to the subject of this new region, because we really need to build. There's a lot of competition within the region, but we also need to build cooperation and try to do regional planning with that as a framework. I like to devote a few, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, talk about Hong Kong and the shock that has been true in this two major shocks in the last 4 years: the 1997 turnover, and then the 1998 financial crisis. And then, and now, what are the strengths and weakness and opportunity and threat that we can see in this region, in Hong Kong, and the new development that's been taking place, and what are the new challenge for them to for that region to working out. I would say the world has focused on Hong Kong about 4 years ago with the return to Chinese sovereignty. It has gone and passed, and I think has gone and passed very smoothly. But I think for Hong Kong, people has recognized that now it has destiny at its own hand, and there's a need for stability and continuity to try to maintain the past prosperity. So you need vision, new vision, and initiatives. This is something that has never happened before. In the past, it's always the government in London that can do everything for Hong Kong. But now, it's a different world. So, and Hong Kong is under a one country, two system political system. So you have to try to bring equilibrium within that kind of framework. And of course, it's in the democratic process is going very strong. People are complaining about too slow, and I think it is going to be a major determinant for the next several years. The financial crisis, so the 1997 turnover actually has progressed very smoothly. The major impact is really the 1998 financial crisis. It demonstrates very clearly that now any city in the world cannot be immune from your neighboring city, region. The financial crisis starts from Malaysia and Thailand, and then to Korea, and then back to Indonesia, and finally, eventually, engulf Hong Kong. The asset price bubble has burst. The SME felt a lot of credit crunch, and the unemployment in Hong Kong has rose about to 6%. That's never unheard of in 20 years. And also, the government found that the revenue is decreasing, and there's a lot of social discontent because of this financial crisis. And also, there's a question of whether Hong Kong can be sustainable, by doing what they have done in the past. And obviously the conclusion is that it's not. So you have to think about technology, and think about innovation. Well, I don't want to bother you with this chart. This just basically says that the GDP in 1998, you're looking about close to the right end. 1998, there's a drop, a precipitous drop in the GDP. So let's look at Hong Kong's strengths and how it's going to position itself. Again, I am speaking as myself, as academics. I do not speak for Hong Kong, so I think I don't have feel the burden of like my mayor friends here in the podium. Hong Kong, I think, is recognized as a well-established rule of law, transparency in the government, and good protection of individual and business rights, sound structure in financial services, good foundation in IT, and it has a tremendous accessibility to the global network. Now, it also has a long-standing market orientation. I think this is what China has expected Hong Kong to, it's very much different because of that market orientation. And the SMEs in Hong Kong has been viable or vigorous in the last several decades. Diligent and adaptable workforce, experience with the Chinese market. I don't think anyone in the world can claim as their expertise in working with the Chinese market. And has a tremendous pulling power for overseas Chinese and inland Chinese alike. People like to go to Hong Kong. And also it is one of the most favorable place for MNC to establish headquarters. Now, Hong Kong has weaknesses here. It has narrow economic base. It has skyrocketing real estate price. I'm sure many of you has recognized that. And it has a decreased real export in growth. And that is because of the competition from Shanghai, from Xiamen, from Guangzhou, from Shenzhen, everywhere, along the coastal Chinese cities. And the people there in Hong Kong has a short investment time frame. That is like it's a trader mentality. This is not conducive to technology development. Lack of appreciation of technology, inadequate infrastructure, and also has a relatively weak education and training system. Well, this is just to show you how the real export in Hong Kong has decreased. Real export growth in Hong Kong has been decreased over years. Since peak in 1992, you can see every year it is coming down. And of course, the 98 is a tremendous blow to Hong Kong. Now, and the threats is not only coming from outside, we're talking about outside competition, Asia Pacific cities, Chinese coastal cities, this has been clear. And although we're talking about WTO, we debate about what kind of effect WTO will have to China and to Hong Kong. And I think it's, if in the future we can expect that China become more market-oriented and more internationalized, and the role of entry port of Hong Kong, I think will be decreasing. What about if there's a direct link between Taiwan, between Taipei and Shanghai, the two sides of the strait? A lot of re-export, a lot of tourism, I think Hong Kong will be affected. So I think these are the external factors, external threats, you might say. But I think most importantly, facing Hong Kong is the threat from within. It's the misunderstanding of technology. Well, people usually consider IT, high tech as IT, and IT as e-commerce. E-commerce as .com company. So they have a misunderstanding of what technology is and what technology can do. And there's the myth of laissez-faire. Actually, from my observation, is that Hong Kong has been in the past decade, 2 decades, traditionally it's a country with the government's role is very dominant. But people like to think that its market is laissez-faire. And because of that, there are problems in the complacency and defeatism, meaning that, it's too late. Is it too late for Hong Kong to do in technology? Now that Taiwan or Singapore, Korea has been done very well, Hong Kong catch up? So I think these are the kind of things that we talk about in Hong Kong. And we have to go through this because you want to do a regional planning, you want to force a vision or mission, you really have to think about this. But on the other hand, the opportunity of Hong Kong is tremendous. It's great. I think the financial crisis served as a catalyst for change. And the new vision on IT, which is Mr. Dong Jianhua has talked about, expanding role of IT worldwide. And there's a potential of synergy between the Hong Kong and the Pearl River Delta in my map show earlier. And now Hong Kong, although it cannot be talked about as an entry port, but it certainly can become a center for the growth of South China. And I think this is a regional role. More obviously interest in Hong Kong and the rising R&D capability. So I think these are all the factors come into play in thinking about the future of Hong Kong in the new technology era. Now, what are the strategic directions? Well, okay, in terms of the route that I was talking about, the framework to analyze Hong Kong, so you can see, there are in this 13 factors that I point out. Some are satisfactory, some are poor, some are good. And I think what the community and the government has to lead is to try to build up those areas that are considerably relatively poor. And I think what I'd like to talk about is 3 major infrastructure projects that is being undertaken in Hong Kong. Well, the strategic direction one is to exercise proactive leadership, to use science and technology as a vehicle for added value in use, emphasize IT as the driver, and enhance education to cultivate human capitals, and focus on how you can promote Hong Kong and the cooperation, regional development in the Pearl River Delta. And of course, international cooperation, which has been a major force in the past.
Marked recycling and everything, and they use the kids to go and help do clean and sort and stuff. But no, there's no consistency.
Kurt.
I just wanted to quickly share a lesson we learned from one of our colleague consultants in California who was examining sort of street fair, something called the Pumpkin Festival. I think it's near San Francisco. For a couple of years, he's been managing the recycling collection in that venue, and he decided to test sets of cans that were just labeled to receive recyclables versus cans that were labeled that way and also had sort of elaborate signs stuck behind them explaining why they're there and what they're for and what people should do. And he found a significant difference in people's behavior with the cans with the signs. They would respond by putting the right things in the cans, whereas if the can was just sitting there sort of unattended with little explanation, people basically treated it as a trash can.
I guess that's been a question of mine. To what extent do people read stuff that's posted? But you're saying that his experience was, at least with those
in a
those
fair
events.
setting there, where they seemed to respond to the diagrams and it wasn't a tome of text explaining what people should do. It was
But a little extra
smiley
information.
faces and things.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the observations we've made in some of our fairs is that when there is recycling there, the cardboard containers look just like the trash can containers. Mm-hmm. Even though they may have a word on them, they're just almost identical. Not unlike that Safeco field where there's rip-fluted, trash cans and almost the same identical ones for recycling. And talking with Seattle Center staff, they were very interested in if we could obtain some containers and make them available, very brightly colored with recycling blue or something on it, and make those visible for community folks to use. That was part of our idea with that grant that we applied for. Mm-hmm. And I think it's that color, that big message, and not that you're taking something that's a makeshift container for that event, for that day, or for that weekend, but in fact you got something that's really unique. And it adds to your comment that the additional message makes it more likely to be used for that purpose. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen a lot of those in my years of look at the fairs in Seattle. I mean, they are there, but they don't look that different.
Mm-hmm. And we need to move in that direction as well. We have a lot of events that happen exterior. We certainly provide the trash cans for the U District Fair, and we also provide trash cans for opening day, for boating season, all up and down the area there. Mm-hmm. And I think where we have failed is in that very area, and that is when people request trash for events, we don't provide them necessarily with recycling options because our recycling options are large dumpsters and or interior public area bins. Mm-hmm. So we don't have something currently in our program that we can also throw in the back of the pickup truck when we deliver the trash cans that are these brightly colored bins that we could help out with, the U District Fair. So that's a shortcoming in our program that we need to find more capital dollars for and do that, because it frustrates me relative to when people call in and I say, well, did you ask them about the recycling needs? And the answer really is no, because we don't have necessarily containers to offer other than pulling them out of a building.
It would sound like it would be a good idea to try to kind of move toward what's a good standard event type bin. You know, it's going to be cheaper than a
Yeah.
bin that we want to last for 20 years out on the streets of Seattle. But it's kind of got to look, and people, you know, you go from street fair to street fair, and you see a lot of the same food vendors. So I know that I usually try to hit a couple. So there could be a cumulative message if there's some consistency there.
Well, on the other hand, you might want to go with the 20-year bin because this one's going to get moved around a whole lot. It might be worth, particularly if you could get some grant funding.
I know
Bring that
I've
up
talked
front.
with Pat Kaufman from Seattle Center about this before, and they've chosen to use the PVC pipe with a plastic bag because it breaks down and they can store it because they need a lot of them for an event. And then they're easy to move around and they're easy to break down and store in between.
So, and what's their experience with contamination or actually getting recyclables in there? Do you know?
I only just have anecdotal. I volunteered and collected,
Yeah.
went around and collected them when they got full, and they were 60 to 70% recycling and
Yeah.
the rest garbage, but they were definitely more recycling than garbage.
Yeah, one thing I would say is that our definition of success in terms of contamination is a lot lower bar than in our curbside program, and so when we say, oh, gee, it's only 30% garbage, that's good, and that which would be really bad in a curbside recycling situation. But we got a lot more transient population, so.
Okay. Well, and if the cost is in the collection and the can rather than the sorting, that makes a difference too. Kristen, did you want to follow?
I was just curious about the impact of the contamination rates on the processing cost, and what you're saying is that even if it's 50/50, that's not a big difference?
Yeah, I just did some numbers, and for example, in a program where we assume we get 75% of recyclables that are captured out of the street side litter garbage stream, someone have to help me with the numbers because I can't do them on top of my head, but, I have the tons. So we could maybe collect between 200 and 300 tons. So even if your processing cost was $200 a ton, Seattle Center's paying $70 right now. That's because they have glass mixed in with everything else. We're paying $20 for the curbside program. So even if it was $200 a ton, 200 times 200 is not a very big number compared to the collection cost, so.
Okay. It's helpful to know. Did you have other questions, Kristen, that you wanted to make sure we follow up on?
Well, it seems like a clear area for follow-up is creating sort of a bank of recycling containers for street fairs for short-term uses for football season, what have you. Interesting question of how to move forward on that.
So who has the bank?
We have to look at the far end of the table.
Well, we've had programs that we've funded in our waste reduction stream, and we do have grant funding that we currently make available for communities to do things like this. And we could look at what we have, and it's always, we're also trying to do a public place recycling program and pay for the collection of it. But there's always an opportunity if you look at those funds, creatively, to do some things in this regard, because it's for the public.
Yeah, well, I think that Kristen was talking about, acquiring a sets of cans, then having them available so that you could call for them, or, when you've got an event that you need to get them out, or parks could call for them when they've got some special events, or you could provide them for various kinds of neighborhood events.
Well, we can certainly convene, a meeting with even some of the other jurisdictions that aren't here and, try to reach consensus on what would be a good usable can system and, then look at our resources because, this is obviously a good investment if we can leverage it with other jurisdictions, reaching out, having a consistent message and see what we can cook up.
And even if we want to purchase our own cans, we'd be very curious as to what you came up with and as far as being able to purchase. We just buy whatever we need for us.
Do you know what Seafair uses? Because that's a really temporary use.
Cardboarded.
Is it?
Is it cardboard?
Seafair uses their actually wire bins, and basically think of like chicken wire, and with just a round wrapped around a frame, and they're open.
Oh, yeah.
They're all
Okay,
by
I've
their
seen
beer
them. Yeah,
gardens
yeah.
and et cetera down at the races. So it's nothing that's
Yeah.
really transportable.
Yeah, I see.
While we didn't find much literature on street-side recycling, there is a lot of literature on event recycling. And we haven't gone and looked at that, but I'm sure we can learn some lessons on cans and can design or from that literature.
Kurt, did you want to?
I just wanted to throw one thing out for folks to think about. It might not be a topic today, but something that some baseball fans have pointed out to me is that Safeco Field is the one place where people don't necessarily take their trash or recyclables to a can to dispose of. They just leave it there where they sit and they leave. And there apparently, anecdotally, is a lot of plastic in that stream that could probably be recovered. So that might be something to think about in the future, whether Safeco Field needs some assistance in figuring out how to get at that plastic or get it out of their garbage.
Okay, and to the best of your knowledge, they don't, as they go through and clean up the stadium, they don't
I'm not
sort
really a
it?
baseball
Yeah.
attendee myself, but from what I hear, it usually just goes in with the garbage.
I would be surprised, yeah.
Yeah, Ann, what's your experience?
Well, our experience in Husky Stadium is thankfully whatever is left in the stands actually is culled through for aluminum and plastic because of how the students are hired. We hire clubs and organizations, and they are then paid by the athletic department so that they can, if they're with the rugby club or whatever, and they go through and they get a certain amount of money for collecting, and they're instructed to do the sorting. And we actually get far more recycled in that manner than what ends up in our cans outside and around the stadium that are labeled for recycling.
And of course, I know that Safeco Field does have community groups that, for fundraising, run the vendor spots, the pizza places and stuff like that. So it'd be interesting to check that out with them.
Okay. Good idea. Any other bright ideas here we should be following up on?
It occurred to me that one thing, another possible approach to the neighborhood or community event recycling efforts is that it seems to me it could be an opportunity in terms of at least assisting with a purchase of containers, is that through the Neighborhood Matching Fund program, there's opportunity there for these groups to match the city money by the actual recycling and business themselves, sorting and things out. And so there's a volunteer opportunity there, as well as a potential fund source for acquiring recycling containers.
That's an interesting suggestion.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Others? Jenny?
At the last council committee hearing where we talked about public place recycling, Councilmember Conlon had asked the question, how much additional curbside recycling would we need to get in order to sort of cover the cost of this program? So if we were, saying that we're going to get some education value out, so it will increase the commercial curbside program, it would need to be 8,000 tons. I've calculated that number now. And we collect 60,000 tons in the curbside program, but then if you step back and say, well, there's the commercial side too, and certainly with a downtown program, you might see some effects there. And so I guess I'm saying it's a little high, but it's certainly something to consider that I could do some calculations and say, I can come up with some hard numbers to help justify the program, and that wouldn't be.
But you'd need 10 times as much as you're getting now.
No, we would need, but if you got those tons from the curbside program, because people said, oh, I need to do better at home because this message is all over the place, and you got them in a commercial recycling program because people are being reinforced, and maybe we should start a program, then I'm saying that 8,000 tons isn't totally out of the ballpark for something.
It's not 8,000 from the streets, but the streets remind people.
That they need to do it this way. Okay, so
Right.
the education has a value, even if it doesn't measure.
Come out of the street. It could come in curbside, and that was Councilmember Collins'
Yeah,
point.
it's like, would street side recycling be a loss leader for us?
Yeah. Okay, I get it. Okay.
And then I think I heard maybe from someone at Seattle Public Utilities that at some of your public place recycling, the street side cans, you're seeing businesses, employees of businesses are putting out bags of cans. You guys want to comment on that?
Yes.
Tell the
You want
story,
to know?
Michael.
What's your question? I'm sorry.
I guess if you could, I was under the impression that a couple you'd kind of done a little detecting and as a result of finding big bags of recyclables left next to the public place cans, and as a result had managed to start new programs at businesses. Is that right? Or
No, one of the things that we were looking at doing was using it as an opportunity to do some door knocking on some of the businesses in the area to say, do you know that we have commercial recycling available, et cetera. So that's really what we're sort of looking at.
Okay, so that's the sort of thing Jenny's talking about, that
Right.
it's a loss leader and it's creating the interest with people who already want to recycle, apparently, because they've got the cans all bagged up separately.
And boxed up.
Or boxed up. And
And there are some good opportunities there because we now have the city's curbside program available for small commercial businesses.
Yeah.
So if it's some of those very same businesses who didn't have a cost-effective way to recycle before, that would be a direct message we could give them.
Right, and so far, these folks don't even know that it's okay, you know, I mean, they're sneaking these things in at night. We don't know who's dropping these bags of you know, liquor bottles in front of the Dexter Horton building, but we assume it's not city employees. But so we have to track them down and say, hey, there's this other convenient, free way you can do this.
yeah, that's great. Okay. Any other comments? A lot of information, certainly things I didn't know about the cost effectiveness and the value. That's really nice to hear what your experience is at parks with people's expectations. You know, I suspected that I know when I go into a park and I, you know, have some drink in a bottle or plastic container or can and for my picnic, and then there's, you know, sort of feel like you have to pack out your trash. That's fine if you're going into the wilderness, but you'd think in a city park there'd be a container, and now there is. And I think people will expect that. Arthur, did you have anything else from your experience you want to add at this point?
Just one thing, if I may, and going back to the public education, we hear so many times that although we have, and I use the example of Alaska and Horizon Airlines in particular, we have personnel that are very energetic, I'll say, when it comes to recycle. But oftentimes they, in our airport being known as an O&D or origin destination airport, they're often concerned that we don't have enough signage or information out there to the public that is coming to their area, and that they see it as a matter of pride with the signs, the posting, or some form of education to the public there. And I think just the main note to say that folks in this region at the airport, and I'm sure throughout the community, are proud of their recycle activities and want others who come visit us to participate. And I think that's one thing we're going to go on in the future at the airport to make a bit better.
That's great.
Well, that beeping means that the tape is out. So that's probably a good point at which to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. Urge you to pick up a bagel on your way out.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yes, thank
And
you very much.
thank you so much for your dedication. I learned a lot.
Thank you.
Good.
Good afternoon and welcome. I'm just going to do a brief welcome and then we can listen to music together. I'm Jim Compton. I'm chair of the Public Safety Committee of the Seattle City Council. My staff member, Julian Saucedo, has spearheaded this wonderful effort to try to focus some attention on local Hispanic issues. We're gathered in City Council chambers. It's noon on the 25th of May. It's a Friday. And we're going to hear some music, courtesy of Juan Barco. I guess, what genre music are we hearing?
I'm not sure.
Okay. But please,
depends on the crowd.
There's lots of lovely food, and we'll start at about 12:15. As panelists arrive, maybe they could join me up here, and we're going to have, I think, an important conversation on issues facing the Spanish community, or the Hispanic community. But for now, I give you Juan Barco.
Thank you. Muy buenas tardes. Son tardes ya, ¿verdad? ¿Estamos comiendo? La bamba, ¿eh? Nunca lo he oído. Actually, I always try to take people on a trip. I usually perform with a group. I have my own group. And since I only have a short time, I'm going to try to, in the next 10 or 12 minutes, I'm going to try to see if you can visualize this from a migrant's little kid on their first migrant trip. And I'm going to try to do 6 months of traveling musically, okay? So I'm going to start in Texas, where my family started from. And I know you're going to be discussing issues. And I guess the relevant part to your discussions today would have to be that some of those issues that I faced when I was a kid, they're still around today, and it's amazing that they haven't disappeared. So I'm going to start you back in Texas, like I said. Back in Texas, I lived in a little town called Coal Mine, and in Coal Mine, there was no work. So everybody said, vamos a irnos pa'l norte to go look for the crops. And we're going to be like Captain Kirk. We're going to go to a place where nobody had been. And we were going to be very conscious of all those words that end in shun, like discrimination, like irrigation, like assimilation, like immigration, and all those things that end in shun. So my mom used to sing this kind of songs as we started the trip back in Texas, and we're going to turn on the radio, and from a migrant's little kid, 8 years old, this is what he saw and heard.